We all think of reading as this basic fundamental skill, right? Something we learn as kids and just have. But what if I told you that for most adults, right here in the US, that's just not true? 54%. Just let that number hang in the air for a second. What do you think that represents? That's the percentage of American adults, we're talking 130 million people, who read below the level of an average 11-year-old. This isn't some small fringe issue. This is a massive, pretty much invisible crisis that's affecting more than half of our adult population. So, what does a literacy crisis like this actually look like in the real world? Well, it's not just about struggling to read a long book. The consequences are deep, they're tangible, and they ripple out into every single part of our society, often in ways we don't even realize. The connections here are just staggering. 21% of adults in the US are functionally illiterate. 1 in 5 can't read well enough to earn a living wage. Think about that. And then 3 out of every 4 people in state prisons, they have low literacy skills. And a whopping 80% of people living in poverty read at the lowest levels. This isn't just a school problem, folks. This is a fundamental roadblock to opportunity, to justice, and to climbing the economic ladder. Now, our first instinct when we see numbers like this is to blame something, right? The schools, maybe, or maybe a lack of effort from people. But what if we've been looking at this problem completely backwards? What if the problem isn't the people, but the act of reading itself? Let's just try on a totally different way of thinking about this. What if it's not that millions of people are failing at reading, but that the entire system of reading, the one we've built our modern world on, is actually failing millions of people? And you know what? The science actually backs this up, and it's pretty fascinating. According to MIT neuroscientist John Gabrielli, our brains literally never evolved to read. Speaking and listening, yeah, that's hardwired into our DNA. But reading, that's a brand new invention for our brains. To do it, our brain has to basically hijack parts that were designed for totally different things, like recognizing objects. And that brings us to the other half of the puzzle. As MIT's Matthew Schneps points out, the way we read was designed around ancient technology. Ink and paper and scrolls. We're trying to run our information age on an operating system that's centuries out of date. So we really need to rethink what reading even is. It's not a natural skill like walking. It's a super demanding cognitive task that forces the brain to build all these new artificial pathways. And because it's so new to us, evolutionarily speaking, our brain just doesn't have a built-in plan B when those pathways don't form just right. So, when you have this huge mismatch between our natural brain wiring and the main way we share information, what's the cost? Well, it's not just social, it's economic. And the numbers, they're honestly hard to even wrap your head around. $2.2 trillion. That is the estimated cost of low adult literacy to the US economy. Every single year. And no, that's not a typo. Trillion, with a T. So where in the world does a number that big come from? Well, it's way more than just lost wages. It includes up to $238 billion in extra healthcare costs alone. Think about someone misreading a prescription bottle. And then there's another $240 billion from lost tax revenue in social services. This one issue is a massive drag on our entire economy. And honestly, beyond the numbers, there's a deeper cost. When our whole society depends on a communication system that just doesn't work well for more than half the people, it creates constant friction. Imagine the misunderstandings in everything from legal contracts to political debates. Conflict pretty much becomes inevitable. Okay, this all sounds pretty grim, I know, but here's where the story gets really interesting. What if we could just bypass this clunky, unnatural system altogether? What if we could use technology to tap into the language our brains were actually built for? Think about it like this. Reading and writing, that's like our third language. Our first language, the one that's totally innate to us as humans, is listening and speaking. And technology, right now, gives us the power to go back to our brain's original native operating system. And the way it works is just so simple and elegant. Step 1, you listen to any text using text-to-speech. Instantly, your brain's auditory network, which is super powerful but often ignored when we read, it just lights up. Step 2, you process that information naturally. And step 3, you share your own ideas and thoughts just by speaking, using speech-to-text. Simple. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but does it actually work?
Well, the evidence we have suggests it's not just a small improvement, it's a complete game changer.
Let's look at a huge study from Stanford University. They put speech to text head-to-head with typing on a phone. The result? Using your voice was 3 times faster than typing. Not 30% faster, 300% faster. That is a massive leap in efficiency.
Okay, you might be thinking, but what about mistakes? Well, get this. You don't trade speed for accuracy. The same Stanford study found the error rate for speaking was over 20% lower than for typing. So it's faster and it's more accurate. It's a win-win.
But the real human impact here is just, wow. Take the story of author Davis Graham. He really struggled with traditional reading. When he was formally tested, his reading comprehension was in the first percentile. The first. But with text-to-speech technology, he jumped to the 98th percentile. This tech didn't just help him a little bit, it unlocked his actual potential. So here's the big takeaway. This isn't about fixing millions of people who struggle with a skill that's unnatural to begin with. It's about building a new model, one that's powered by technology that makes the old, outdated model of literacy totally irrelevant for getting and sharing knowledge. And all of this leads to one final huge question. If technology can completely level the playing field for understanding and expressing complex ideas, then what are we really measuring in our schools and our workplaces? Are we testing for real intelligence and ability, or are we just testing how well someone can use an outdated piece of technology? The answer to that question has trillion-dollar consequences for our economy and for the future of our society.